Hello everyone, and welcome to...
World of Final Fantasy.
It actually came to PC, finally. I didn't think it was going to do that. I figured it was going to stay a PS4 exclusive forever. But as it turns out, Square and their various, things that publish under them, developers, are actually starting to put more and more stuff on PC, which is really cool. We've got the Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age remake coming to PC at the 1st of February. We've got... what else do we have? Final Fantasy 15, of course. So that's cool. If they would put Dissidia NT on PC, that would be awesome. What are the odds of that, though? I'm not sure. So, yeah, it's a good time. But this one I wasn't sure about, because this was released a bit before that sort of larger wave of push for, PC support started happening. But it turns out, yes, indeed, they put it on PC. Let's go this way. World of Final Fantasy is... hard to describe and easy to describe at the same time. The easy way to describe it would be it's Final Fantasy Pokemon, but really it's not quite that simple. I think I'm supposed to go this way. What it really is basically a monster battling game like Pokemon, where you go around and collect various Final Fantasy creatures, and I use them against other creatures in battle. But unlike Pokemon that is focused on the capturing and training of said creatures for the plot and the gameplay, this is actually structured more like a classic JRPG, i.e. Final Fantasy, with those mechanics for the battles. It's a bit odd how it's actually structured this way, but it works pretty well. So if I just show you right now, I'm currently in a pretty late game area, and I have a team of level 50, roughly, creatures, and these creatures are called Mirages in the game, and Mirages they represent, your legendary Final Fantasy creatures, things that everyone knows about, like the Moogle over there, and Ifrit down there, and we've got Rama, and a Flan, because it's a Flan, or a Flan, and I needed one. And you can basically capture just about anything you encounter, even some of the bosses, but that takes a bit more of a roundabout situation. You can't generally capture them in the actual battle. So these are all the things that I have right now. I even have Titan, which I just got. I don't even know what Titan can do, actually. He was sort of a secret one. Oh, he can... Anyway, yeah. So the growth system of the game involves battling and gaining SP upon level up. And SP is used in these boards, which allows you to teach your Mirages various skills, like so. And the way this works is actually a bit odd at first, but very important to understand, because it determines how powerful they will be. Geocrush. Boop. Like that. He has now learned an ability, so now if I use him, he can use a earth damage. Single target, physical earth damage attack. And the whole topple thing I'll have to explain in a minute. But basically, how all of this kind of operates is a bit strange at first, until you look at this. If you see those green abilities versus the white ones, that means that no matter which form they're in, very much like Pokemon evolutions, they will have access to the white abilities, but the green ones they can only use in that particular form. So if Titan transforms into Maduin later on, he will have all of the things in white that I have learned on the Titan form, which will make Maduin even more powerful, but he will not be able to use things like Gaia's Wrath, Geocrush, and Enhanced Earth. Those don't count. So, and you can tell that because all of the exclusive, form exclusive abilities have that little white sigil around the node, and that's kind of how you can tell them apart, basically. I did not understand this at first, why some Mirages were losing abilities when they transformed and some weren't. It was a bit strange, but that's how it actually works. Maduin was a tough boss, by the way. So, basically I should probably just go into the actual combat and everything to tell you everything else. The main characters here are somewhat obnoxious, I have to admit, and I guess Final Fantasy tradition for a while now. But you get used to them. You have Rain, the sister, and Lon, the brother, and they have that sort of, classic blue Oni, red Oni relationship, where Rain is the cool-headed, emotionally distant, thinks everything through kind of one. Oh, we got ambushed by a frog and some Moogles. That's weird. And Lon is the emotionally driven, bullheaded kind of doofus that does everything without thinking. And I mean, that's a very cliched way to do things, but if they want to, you know, go with those tropes, sure, they're very, like, overplayed at this point, but that's fine if they want to use those. The problem is that sometimes Lon comes off more, well, less of like a, kind of, like, overly emotionally driven, like, bullheaded, stubborn man, and more like just a complete moron, to an annoying degree. But whatever. So the combat works in a turn-based system or an active time system. You can actually change it in the options. I have it on turn-based right now because I don't like being killed when I'm looking for an item that I'm trying to use. And, yeah, you may notice that we're all kind of stacked together. So, stacking is actually one of the main mechanics of the game. And, you technically have a party of 6, your 2 main characters and then 4 mirages. But you stack up together to form 2 kind of combined members for a party of 2. They can become unstacked either because you choose to or because they are toppled. And that will stun you and do a bunch of damage, and it's terrible. You don't want that to happen. Enemies can stack as well. And stacks are stronger because they combine all of the stats of the stacked creatures together, as well as all of their abilities together, so they can use any of their abilities on their turn. And they also will give you some special abilities depending on what you have. So for instance, if I go down here, any of these abilities with these little like pyramidal diamond symbols, pyramidal, that's a 3D shape, wow, diamond symbols next to them, are things that this stack can do as a result of the combination of abilities the various things in it have. So if you have like a lot of like people with fire, say you have a couple of enemies with fire, chances are they'll get Fire as well as when they're in a stack. And if they have a bunch of enemies with, or a bunch of mirages with Fire, you might get Firaga eventually. And you can even get the JA level spells like Firaja and Blizzaja and all those, which is actually really cool because not a lot of Final Fantasies let the player use those. Those are generally like boss only abilities, but you know, I don't have a lot of those though. I've used 2 of them so far, and they're like ridiculously strong. But you know, I think actually I have Eroga and Flare and Inflare. There's some really cool abilities actually, and this is kind of one of my favorite parts, just combining different entities together and seeing what you can get out of it, what their various things will actually give you. It's kind of cool. And of course, some of the special ones, like Ifrit over here they do have their signature abilities, so Hellfire, Judgment Bolt, Gaia's Wrath, all those. You may notice there is a fast forward. You can fast forward the animations and stuff like that, very useful. And that is a pretty simple battle. And get some levels. Hey, Titan leveled up a bunch because I just got him and he was level 1. And one thing I should explain are the actual sizes as well. Mirages have 3 different sizes traditionally, small, medium, and large, and if you want to actually set them up as a stack, you've got to fit them where they go. Large goes on the bottom, medium goes in the middle, and small goes on top, and they always have to go in that order. So what your team is going to be composed of is very much not just limited by what you have with you, but also what size they are and where they can fit. Which is why you can do this. You can actually change the sizes of your characters between like these chibi-fied forms and their normal like Kingdom Hearts looking forms. And that changes which stacks they use. So if I go to stack setup, you see you can actually set up 4 different stacks. These are the 2 stacks for the like chibi-fied versions of them. And I would put other stacks here, which I don't currently have. I have changed it over to using these for now because I want to use some larger mirages, and the only way to use large mirages is to be a medium main character. So they can hold you. And let's see. I don't think I went the correct direction. I'm just gonna point that out. I think I've been led astray. Oh wait, you can walk across this, can't you? Yes, you can. I don't remember where I'm actually supposed to be going, to be totally honest. I mean, I could just leave, but that's not correct. Anyway, let's go back. So, Another thing, there are actually rarely extra large mirages, which I should show you. Extra large mirages are kind of rare, almost mini-boss type enemies that you'll find occasionally that are really quite strong and have some difficult mechanics to capturing them. I should also explain the capture mechanics. I probably can't do it here. Basically, you can't just like throw a Pokeball to capture something. Just like in Pokemon, if something is at low health, it has a higher chance of being captured, but that isn't the only way to, like, the only determining factor here. Imprison is what it's called. If you imprison something, it is captured. However, you can't just throw the prism at something for no reason. You have to actually make it vulnerable to imprisonment first. And imprisoning something requires you to actually know, so the Libra spell is, like, almost vital in this game. And, that will tell you what kind of things you need to do to the enemy to make it vulnerable. So, for instance, I have a Cerberus, and the Cerberus required me to use lightning, fire, and ice attacks against it, all three. And every time you used one of each three elements, it would actually get one level of, like, vulnerability. And you can do this repeatedly to increase its vulnerability to being imprisoned and have a better chance of capturing it. But you, of course, don't want to kill it. You can heal it if you want to, and I ended up doing that several times so I could get a bunch of stacks of vulnerability on it so I could eventually capture it. And every enemy has something different that you need to do. Some of them are as simple as just smack it, and some of them are as specific as, like, you must give it an elixir. Like something like the Magic Pot, for instance, which of course a Magic Pot would have something like that. But Mega Mirages, as the extra large ones are called, are actually summons. Because, of course, you don't have a spot for extra large in your stacks, only those three, small, medium, and large. Mega Mirages are your summons. And the interesting thing about this game is, it actually covers both of the traditional Final Fantasy summon types. Rude. You know, you have your, like, Final Fantasy 10, 11, 12, 13 style summons that stick with you and have multiple abilities, including their signature abilities that you use in battle and actually, like, as a member of the party. And then you have your more classic Final Fantasy summons that don't stick around. They show up, do a signature attack of some sort, and then leave. And this game actually has both of those. And Mega Mirages are the former. They're the ones that are summoned up and will fight with you for a while with various attacks before leaving. And I'm building up some AP here, which is like MP, basically, in order to show you. So, you have to have a certain amount to summon them, although this amount is not consumed in the summoning process, it's just what you need. So I've got Durgi, the Cerberus, because of course that's what it's named, and Gaines, the Behemoth. So let's summon up Gaines. And I'll show you how that works. Now these types of summons can get very powerful, but they'll start out disappointingly weak for, you know, what you would think of as a summon. They each have their own, like, summon animation, which is cool. And they have a bit of character to them, as you can see. And there he is, it's Gaines. And you'll hop on and start the battle. And the way these work is actually, each character gets a turn to control it, and it will eventually have to be dismissed because everything, including its basic attack, uses AP. And once it runs out of AP, it will leave. But of course, Gaines here, being a behemoth, or a behemonster, technically, the final evolution of the behemoth, can use Meteor. Meteor, sort of. So I'm gonna do that. Use Meteor counter stance. Oh yeah. And now when I get attacked, I will counter by dropping meteors on their heads. Which is the main power of this particular summons, where this guy's sort of use comes from. They often hit several times and are very strong, but it does take several AP per counter. So I'm going to just let those meteors fall and use the last of my AP for the actual meteors rather than basic attacks. And that'll be that. Now, I don't have gains there, like, extremely high level because, as I mentioned earlier, you have all those various abilities that some of them stay with the creature no matter what form they're in, and some of them don't. And so really the best way to get those extra large mirages super powerful is to get all of the board filled up for the extra large form, and then start filling up these smaller forms, various passive abilities and stuff like that, to make sure it has lots and lots of strength and magic and attack and all that stuff, so it's really, really strong. And that's what I'm working on with him. That's what I mean by they'll start out quite weak, because you really need to have it at a pretty high level and actually have like several mirage boards like mastered in order to have it be strong enough to really do a lot of damage. Do I have Cura? Yes, I do have Cura. Be cured! Don't die, please. Thank you. So the combat system is, of course, fairly simple. As combat system, I suppose the fighting is fairly simple, but satisfying enough for a turn-based Final Fantasy game. And there we go, getting some more levels. And you will eventually kind of make your way through the story, which is actually kind of cool. It's not necessarily that the story itself is incredibly interesting, it's that you're going through various recognizable Final Fantasy locations and meeting various Final Fantasy characters along the way. And I guess that's kind of the main point here. It's that you know, if you are really a person like me, I'll admit, who has played Final Fantasies for a very long time and loves the series in general, you'll basically appreciate this game on the basis that it's that. It is something meant to evoke nostalgia, but does it in a pretty good way. And on that note, I should probably show you the other summon type. So as you go across these various missions and find other Final Fantasy characters, they will become champions for you. And champions are the other type of summon in this game, the more classic kind that show up, do something, and then leave. You can have 3 of them equipped at any given time. They use this star system that builds up over a while. And as you can see, I currently have Shulk, Sephiroth, and Shantoto, the best character, by the way, Shantoto, from the best Final Fantasy. And I love Final Fantasy 11, I can't help it. And these are all actually single targets, so we're just gonna go with it. And you know what? I'll show Sephiroth because it's funny. Seeing the classic like Nibelheim burning scene with a chibi Sephiroth is not quite as impactful as the original necessarily. But as you're about to hear, oh yes, summoning a classic champion plays their theme. And actually replaces the battle music for a while. And you gotta admit, that looks pretty cool. The explosion. The chibi floating dude with like the sort of scraggly black chicken wing is a little silly looking. But I appreciate it. And yeah, so for about a minute or so, 30 seconds or so, this theme will continue playing and actually replace the battle music. And this is the really good orchestral metal version of the theme used for Advent Children. Anyway, and that's basically how that system works. And I'll just like waste another one basically just to show you. Because you can never have too much Final Fantasy XI music. So, Shantoto, show them how it's done. There are also various ones that aren't offensive, like Shulk up there is actually a heal and a status effect cure for your whole party. And yes, she still rhymes. Uses a staff weapon skill. And then beats the crap out of them. As you would expect. Also overpowered as hell, as you would expect too, because it's Shantoto. So, there are tons of those. You've got everyone from like really recognizable characters like Cloud to, as I mentioned, Shulk. And that actually brings me to another point. I really enjoy how the characters are introduced in this game. because you've got, if I just replace this, like we've got Refia from Final Fantasy 3 question mark 4 3 3. Wow, that took me a minute. And we've got like Celeste here, and some other characters that aren't necessarily as well known. And the way that the characters are introduced, they don't just scrape over the surface of what the popular Final Fantasies are. They actually really dive in, which is kind of great. I mean, they show things like, you know, for instance, the first Final Fantasy VIII character you meet. You would think maybe it would be Squall, since he's like the main guy. No, it's actually Quistis, who not a lot of people think about, besides the fact that she gives you weird thoughts about your teachers. And the first, like, Final Fantasy VII character you meet is actually Tifa. You meet Yuna long before you meet Tidus. You meet people like Ferris, and, like I mentioned earlier, Shulk, who was from Dirge of Cerberus, one of the Final Fantasy VII spin-off games, not even, like, one of the mainline games. You meet all kinds of characters in this game, from, like, all of the Final Fantasies almost, except for 12, which really sucks. There are no 12 characters. Balthier is a summon, but he is an unlockable, like, DLC summon, basically. Not someone actually in the story, which is unfortunate. I'd like to see a chibi Fran walking around, like, slaying dudes with a rapier or whatever. That'd be pretty sweet. But that brings me to the main point. This is definitely a game for, like, hardcore Final Fantasy fans that really like the series. But there's still a lot here for people that don't necessarily know a lot about it, because it's still a really good, like, monster collecting RPG with all those turn-based elements and all of the various monster capturing and things. Those mechanics are very well fleshed out and work quite well. Poke it. I can't poke it. So, essentially the, I guess, goal of the game is to kind of be both. It's to have something for everyone in the form of its traditional gameplay and stuff, but also to have a lot of references and jokes and in stuff that people that have played all the Final Fantasies will definitely get. I mean, when Squall appears, you're actually fighting Magitech armors from Final Fantasy VI and a couple of other robots, and he mentions, like, you know, did he draw enough thunder for the battle? Of course, referencing the drawing magic system from Final Fantasy VIII. It's little bits like that, you know, if you've played the games, you'll get it, and you'll, like, maybe smirk a little bit. And that's basically what the game consists of. When you get to Besaid, the place that, of course, represents Final Fantasy X, Lon actually does the, like, classic mocked Tidus laugh, that, like, horrifying laugh thing. He actually does it because he says the place once, like, it makes him want to laugh. And that's... I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the game to, like, make fun of itself, especially when it comes to something like what's basically like a community meme at this point. I didn't expect that to come out of the game, but it does, and there's just tons of that littered throughout the game, little references and little bits here and there. The game has a lot of humor in it, but it isn't necessarily just, like, funny all the time. Like, there's more to it than that, and I appreciate that. So yeah, if you are a Final Fantasy fan, like me, then there's a lot here that you'll get out of it. But even if you're not, the combat system, the collection of monsters, the various locales that you get to explore, and things like that are actually all pretty solid as well. If I had to come up with a couple of complaints for this game, one, it for some reason runs at 30 FPS. I don't know why that is. Well, I know why. It's because the PS4 version did, but I don't know why that did either. It's not an extremely negative part of the game, because it's a JRPG, so most of the action is done in menus, so you don't need, like, an extremely high responsive frame rate to select items in menus, and then hit a confirm button. But it's still really nice to have a high frame rate anyway, and, I mean, the game is pretty. Like, a lot of the outside locales and stuff look very good, and it has a nice art style, but oh my god, it's adorable. But I don't understand what about it is so pretty that it would require the PS4 to go down to 30 FPS lock for them to actually, like, extract these graphical... What is that? To extract this prowess from it. That doesn't seem to be the case, so I don't know why it runs at such a limited frame rate, but it does. There's also the fact that you see that little bar to the left, that gauge to the left of our faces on it, is of course the like ATB gauge that shows you when your turns are coming up. It's a little bit long, to say the least. I don't know why it's that long. You know, you find yourself using the fast forward in battles all the time. And I'm glad the fast forward is there, it's a good thing. I simply don't understand why it needs to be there, though. Don't cast Fire Raga on the bombs, you idiot. Like, have the fast forward as an option for people, that's totally fine, especially to go through like long summon animations they don't want to watch or something like that. But I kind of want that thing. But it seems like it would be a better option to also have that and to cut down that gauge over there. It could easily be like 2/3 its current size, and it would, like, you know, to speed up the battles a little bit, and it would still be fine. If you think about other Final Fantasies that use like an ATB system, there's very rarely time where you're just kind of sitting and staring at the screen waiting for the characters' turns to come up. It doesn't take that long. But in this case, it actually takes quite a while for you to traverse that gauge. I don't know why it's so long. It's not a huge deal, it's just one of those little things that you're reminded of occasionally, because it just happens all the time. How would I go about capturing this thing? Is a Ghidra.
I've got this.
Once per battle, oh god. So you have to get it critically low on HP, but it only happens once per battle. That's the problem. Was it weak to anything? Water and ice. Weaker to water, though. Okay. But really, like I said, those complaints are pretty minor in comparison to everything else that it offers. The game is $40, which isn't too bad. That includes all of the DLC and everything that was originally released for the game. That all of the like extra summons and all that stuff are packaged together with it, and you get some other extra cool stuff, which is nice. You missed. Well, and of course, it's all cost reduced from the original price on the PC version, which is good to see. Okay, don't crit it, please. Well, I'm reducing its HP, and it's still not doing it. Okay, hang on. I believe I have... Where is it? 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 Oh no, I got rid of the person with it. There's an ability that lets you hit something at a guaranteed non-lethal amount of damage, so that you won't accidentally kill it. It appears I do not have that. Well, it's kind of strong to fire. Maybe if I just hit it with, like, basic fire, it won't horrifically murder it. Here, have some fire up. Whoops. I tried. Some of those are a little hard to catch, as you see there. But anyway, that is World of Final Fantasy. It is pretty cool for what it is, actually. And of course, if you know you're a longtime fan of the series, there's a lot to enjoy here with, you know, all of the seeing various legendary creatures actually join your party and teaching them all of their legendary abilities and things like that and battling with them. Although I haven't seen any corals yet, by the way. Where are the corals? Or however you pronounce their names. I've never actually heard it pronounced out loud. The big cat things with the whiskers that, like, one-shot your party? Those things. Use blaster all the time? Yeah, where are those? I haven't seen any of those yet. But I do have TONBERRIES. So that's good. Anyway, that has been World of Final Fantasy. I think it's worth picking up if you're a Final Fantasy fan, or if you're really looking for like a monster training RPG and don't have anything else to play right now. It will satisfy that itch quite handily because it's got pretty solid mechanics in that department as well. So, there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Check out the link below to find the Steam page, and I'll see you guys next time. I got one. Nice.
That wasn't so bad.